Okay, we are live right now. I was having some issues with the stream here to get it off between public and private. That's what happens when you have a 47-year-old using all of this. I just saw, well, I didn't just see this, but for people maybe that are just waking up, welcome to my live stream. This is something I want to do. For people who have no idea who I am, I'm a broadcaster for the Pawtucket Red Sox, baseball broadcaster, but I do have a passion for daily fantasy, and this is something that I've wanted to do, and I'm finally doing it. That's the great thing about everything right now is in our society we can basically do whatever we want with the technology. The technology is great. So this is I'm actually on my YouTube stream. So I wanted to first just do a quick little video. I don't want to spend all day. I know people are working on their lineups. Find me on Twitter as well. My handle is at the Radio Mike. But I wanted to share some advice with people because I think when we're doing daily fantasy, our head spins. I know mine does. At the beginning of the week, you feel like you have a lay of the land, and then by the end, you have no clue what you're doing. And then you start reading a lot of things, which is fine. I think we all do that. But I just wanted to tell people, I think you have to, and I've been doing this for years, and biggest tournament I won was $300. It was the tournament I won, well, I didn't, I didn't win it, but I was in top 10 out of 20,000 because it was the old DraftKings format where Sunday night games were part of the main slate. And I loaded the Sunday night game with Patriots Seahawks. I think it was the game where Doug Baldwin had 3 touchdowns and Edelman had 2, and no one played that game because they assumed it was a defensive game. So that kind of leads me into the first part of what your process should be. You need the answers, and feel free to leave comments in the chat here. I've got my YouTube up here on the iPad as well. But you need the answers to the questions first when you're constructing a lineup. You have to really sit back and think about it. Think about lineups that win. Think about your lineup that won and your lineup that didn't win. We have to get off the reservation with statistics and all these numbers for a bit, and we have to start thinking of your lineup. And I don't season long, you don't have to do this, but in daily, when you're making a lineup for that day, it has to be a story. Look at the winning lineups. Last week, if you loaded the Cowboys game, then you're telling everyone, you're telling yourself, if you played Prescott, Lamb, Cooper, Beckham, and even if you played Kareem Hunt, then you're saying, I think this game is going to have 65, 70 points. You can't just smash everybody in your lineup and just hope that everyone goes off. You have to have that lineup construction conviction. So when I say you need the answers to the questions, this is what I do. First of all, I make the implied totals from Vegas on Excel. And I look at these a lot, and you should do this. You should have a feel for the games when you play guys. All right? Houston's implied total is 30. David Johnson's 5,200 on DraftKings. That tells a story. Home favorites, 30 points. You'd think he has a real good shot of scoring a touchdown. You would think. So you have to kind of know the games, first of all. Don't just get locked into, oh, I got to play this guy, I got to play this guy, I got to play this guy because of this, this, and that, or maybe that team is this against the pass. That's important, but you need to have some answers first. You need to know, well, I think Kansas City is going to score 34 points this week. Now, listen, these are the implied totals. Feel free to do this. You know, you're a big bettor, and I just read this morning, so I'm using this as an example. Lamar Jackson is not a great big favorite at home, covering the spread. So maybe you think this game goes 33-24. They still win by 9. What does that mean? Maybe Joe Burrow's in play more. 24 points. Could he throw 2 touchdowns? Possibly. So you can do that. Use the Vegas implied totals as kind of a little thing to get you settled in. And maybe last week in my implied totals, I went and looked back. It had Cincinnati as a home favorite by 6 points against Jacksonville. And home favorites, running backs are good at home favorites. Joe Mixon was sticking right out of there. You can find some off the radar plays. Like I said, I was telling someone this morning. This is a great game right here to target James Conner. James Conner is projected to be about 3% owned. He's at home. They have 26-point implied total. They're coming off a bye. You'd think with 26 points he might score. So James Conner is a good tournament play for me. He could be a good cash game play. He's expensive, but in tournaments you want to differentiate your lineup. So, this is supposed to be a close game. Kareem Hunt is a good play here, but you need to come up with your own answers first, and you need to have convictions in games. Listen. I think this game's going to be 35-27 Carolina. Okay, I'm talking for you. Then maybe that's a game you stack. But go through the games first, do the implied totals, and then figure out what you think off. And I think I like to use Vegas. I don't actually change anything. I keep Vegas here. But I might change some. Like I might go 30-23 here if I think it's going to be closer. And do that, and then make some of your plays off of this. The other thing I do, sticking with Vegas, I go into the DraftKings Sportsbook, and I go to player props. And on my player props, I do what Vegas thinks. Vegas thinks Prescott's going to have 330 yards of total offense. They're usually pretty good. On DraftKings, you get a bonus for 300 yards passing. I mean, how can you not love him? Mahomes might not be that high owned. I think after last week, after their offense wasn't great against the Raiders. But this is some of Vegas's, look at this. They have Watson at 292 over-under. That's what they set that at. Matt Ryan, Minshew, Burrow, Daniel Jones, 297 combined. He's really cheap. Bridgewater, who I love this week. So I do that. I get with the Vegas. These are things you gotta get yourself into a process. This is just some of the things I do. And I do it for running backs. Implied. These are all implied totals. Implied totals. I mean, Mike Davis, 99, could have 100 total yards, 5.5 catches on DraftKings. And there's some good plays here. Even a guy like Antonio Gibson. Vegas thinks he'll have 70 combined yards. Maybe you think he'll have 4 catches at $5,000 at home. Maybe they upset the Rams. That's a guy, if he goes for 2 touchdowns today, he's winning. He's in the millionaire lineup. I'm telling you, if he breaks the slate, that's a guy that will break the slate there. Not, I don't think really any of these guys are going to break a slate. Maybe Gurley if he scored 3 touchdowns, but Gibson's someone that will probably be 1% owned, but could he go for 2 touchdowns? He could. David Johnson's cheap, but I think people are on that. So again, receivers, the same thing. These are just some of the receivers I like with their implied yard totals where DraftKings Sportsbook set the over-under. I play more DraftKings, so receptions matters more, tight ends. Okay? So those are some of the things I do. I study. I basically what I do is I take the games I like for cash games, the 50-50s. Basically what I do is I love to play home favorites for running backs. So, I plug in Elliott, Hilaire. Home favorites, and I like David Johnson. Those would be the 3 guys for me this week that I like. You see where Antonio Gibson is, 5,000. So he's going to be a good maybe swing to him. I think he's a really good tournament play today, Antonio Gibson. But I'll go with more of a floor guy with David Johnson for me. But there's, running backs, again, at home. I like the favorites. Washington's not a favorite, but maybe you think he is. See, that's the difference. You think he's going to be a favorite. So you make decisions on that. But for cash game running backs this week, again, home favorites, I just think you can't. Elliott, this situation for me is weird because I know if McKinnon was just going to play, San Francisco's a lot like the Patriots with you never know. what's going to happen with their guys. I mean, in a 30-point implied total, I just feel like David Johnson is very much in play. Hilaire there, maybe Gurley. But for cash games, I'm just going for floor, safe guys. Tight end is a tough spot for me. I never know what to do here, to be honest. I had Jonas Smith in there initially. I think you still, for pass catchers, you want between 7 to 10 targets. I think it's impossible for tight ends. And then for me, if I struggle with that, then I try to chew off a high total game. So a high total game would be the Dallas game. Schultz is a great play. I mean, I played him last week in tournaments. I mean, he's got a pretty good floor. And Hurst, you think that there's going to be points in this game too. He had that one game, but tight ends are all over the place. Or you just go up. Darren Waller should get a lot of targets in that game. Mark Andrews is already good. I mean, these guys are always good. I just don't play those guys ever in cash games. Maybe I should, but I would if there was some value in the running back spot. I guess there is kind of value, but some of these guys are priced up. James Robinson, Connor. Sanders is going to be a potentially good play. Maybe you don't play Elliott and you play Davis. I just think Elliott's too good for me to pass up. I played him last week. Look at that hair, by the way. But, I mean, look at the floor. This is what you want in cash games. You want safe plays. I mean, that's crazy. Mike Davis and James Robinson, I mean, those guys are PPR. Pretty good floor, too. But again, and this is before injuries. You have to look kind of when he's taken over, really. I mean, he's pretty good. I just don't, in a cash game for me, I think you have to go either Elliott or, one of these guys. And I just think for even 1,100 more, Elliott's worth it. I just think you'd kick yourself if he scored 3 touchdowns in that game and Robinson did it. You still want some upside. Receivers, again, cash games, you want to go with floor guys. McLaurin is a great cash game play. Robbie Anderson, targets. I sort by here. Here's a great play today that I don't know if people will be on. Jamison Crowder. When him and Darnold play, it's crazy. But look at the targets, 5,800. And then I think the other great play, too, if you can get some value opened up, if this is the big one, Julio Jones, if he does not play, I think you shift off to one of those 3,000 receivers, which is probably going to be, this guy's going to be owned through the roof. But who cares? I'm playing him. So, again, get yourself in a process when you do these things. But I really think you need to have implied totals first. So when you make a tournament lineup really has to tell a story, okay? And I know this might sound a little dorky, but you have to look at the winning lineups and arrive at what they think. And I'm going to, instead of blabbing about talking about that, I'm going to walk you through a winning lineup. Sometimes they don't show up on here. Okay, so this was my millionaire lineup. I did okay with my winning lineup. So I didn't win the millionaire, but I'm going to tell you what my thought process was, because it wasn't great, to be honest, on some of this. It could have been better, and that's what you want to do with this. You always want to get better. So let's go to my entry first. So I said there's no chance. Dak is the guy, and I stack. You always have to bring back a stack with the other. You have to, and here's the reason why. If this guy goes off, then someone else on the other team is. And it's really, if you look at all the winning lineups now, they absolutely have a run back guy. I think almost every winning lineup in the millionaire, you have to have correlation and you say, well, why? Well, here's a big reason. There's 87 points scored in that. So if you think Dak is going to go off, which I did, you have to run it back with someone else, because if he goes off, there's going to be yards, maybe not points, but there's going to be stuff on the other side. So I felt Prescott, Cooper, and Gallup, and I ran it back with Beckham. That's how I built this team. I built with my stack first. That's what I did. That's what I do. I get my stacks first because those are the core for me. Look at this. 38, 27, that's 65 points. Had I played Lamb, whatever he had, say he had 20, 85, and then you're talking 120 points from your stack. So you got to start there when you're doing the tournaments. Then I just felt Kamara with Thomas out that I just was so worried if he scored 3 touchdowns, that I'd be behind in the field. But, maybe the price was too much, but I don't second guess that. I just felt there was too much usage there. So I'm telling a story. I played him because I felt usage, not just because it's Alvin Kamara. You can't do that. And I figured in this game there'd be a lot of points, which there were. And I thought with that I did a double stack, so a 2-game stack. So I stacked the Cleveland, Dallas, and then I did a game stack of New Orleans, Detroit, and I thought Hawkinson would be better. Now, he scored a touchdown, but that was not the right line to play. I don't think that was bad to be on that game, okay? Ronald Jones, I figured, listen, with Fournette out at 5,600, he easily had against the Chargers, who were bad against the run. That's a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown upside for me. I like that play. Here's where I screwed up. This was, and I'll be honest with you, this was a let's be smarter than everyone play. Buffalo is really good against the run, but I saw Jacobs, and Jacobs has a high usage. But I said, you know what? He's going to be low-owned, way too expensive. This was not a good play because I didn't really, with conviction, feel, if I had to really sit back and go, does he have a chance to go off today? I didn't think he did, but I was playing an ownership game, and this was a terrible play. You have to go for, I think in tournaments, you have to almost go for the best defense that day. So let's go to the winning lineup. All right. I think more, I don't know if in cash games lineups tell a story the way winning lineups do. This guy, not Mike Stauffer, by the way, does the ratings for 2K NBA. So look what his thought process was. He built his stack, and what did he do? He went Prescott, Lamb, Cooper, and he ran it back with Beckham. All right? Mike Davis, 6,300. What was his thinking there? Well, the price. I think there's going to be a lot of points in that game. He's going to get some receptions. Joe Mixon. Why did he play Joe Mixon? He's at home. He's a favorite. He's going to be low-owned. That's where the low-owns thing is okay. Low-owns, a favorite, in a game with a lot of points. That was a really, maybe a sharp play, but if you use the implied totals, like I told you, this is last week's Cincinnati game. James Conner is going to be low-owned, and he's probably going to be in the millionaire lineup. I really think that. And then the best tight end in the slate, Mark Andrews. And then Dalvin Cook. I don't know why I shied away from Cook. They're playing Houston. They can't stop anybody. This really, if you look at this lineup that won $1 million, and I think FanDuel is easier to do this. And what I mean by that is I feel like on DraftKings sometimes you need some extreme plays. There's not a lot of extreme plays here, if you think about it. And I was pretty far off, but I had the right stack in mind. I still don't mind playing Ronald Jones. Maybe if I would have gotten off Kamara and played Mixon. This is, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But this lineup tells a story. I play my stack. I think Prescott's going to go off. I think Lamb and Cooper are going to go. You have to do this. To win this tournament, to score this points, you have to, with conviction, feel that these guys are going to go off. Because if you don't really feel that, and you should go with what you feel. If you don't feel that, don't play them. Or if a lot of the data, and I don't mind using data, and I'm going to show you, I do use data. I love this tool, FF Today. If you just see guys popping in here, and you're like, man, I can't get off playing that guy, then play him. But you have to if you can't enter a millionaire tournament and start playing all the guys you like, or shying away from playing guys against your team, you have to really, there is a strategy to this. I know a lot of people think it's luck, but this isn't. I mean, this guy really felt with conviction. I mean, it's ballsy to play 3 guys from one team in a millionaire tournament, especially if those tournaments are $10 or $20. I was on Beckham. I don't know why. And Beckham was higher on, but I don't know why he didn't gather more in the community of daily fantasy. But, he didn't just play Mike Davis because he thought, oh, I'm going to be sneaky. Mike Davis was still pretty high on for a tournament. I mean, look at this lineup. Look at 12%. Mixon at 3.5%. Lamb under 10. You want guys under 10, but there's not a lot of guys in this under 10. Look at Cook, 25%. Andrews, and the reason that a lot of big price tight ends are under-owned in tournaments is because their cost. Oh, I'm not paying $7,400 for a tight end. Well, he's really a receiver. And Minnesota was not really. Look at 1.7. They weren't high. 5 points, though. So that's another thing, too, is I like to tell people, don't go too nuts off the reservation either. I do that. Trust me. I want to go into what I did last week in tournaments, and I don't want to get into all the week 5 plays because I think people, I want people to construct some of their own lineups here, but I just want to show them if you're building today. This is, to help you build today, to give you, I just think some helpful tools that when you're doing this, you really want, you should have a lot of confidence in what you're doing. I love these 3 entry max. I build my favorite stacks. This is one of the best scores I've gotten on DraftKings. I think I've been in the 200s 3 or 4 times. And if you sign up on Roto Grinders, it will keep track of that. This is my best score this year. But you can see what I did on this lineup. I was, let's see how many. I still was 57 points behind the leader. I mean, the DraftKings points they're stupid. So again, this was the first stack I built. I built 3 on the day. These were and this is what I do. I do this 3 entry, and for tournaments on DraftKings, I only play this 3 entry max. On tournaments for FanDuel, I just play the millionaire. I determined my stacks first. So I went Prescott, Josh Allen, and Russell Wilson. This was my first stack I built. I had no doubts, and I have no doubts this week, that this guy at the top is going off. I had no doubts about it. Now, I like this lineup I built a little bit better. Now, look I got a goose egg in this, by the way. Prescott, Cooper, Schultz, and I ran it back with Beckham. I said that to me is a no-brainer. Ronald Jones, 4,700. He has 3 touchdown upside to me. He did not score a touchdown. He still had 100 yards. He's, was somewhat high. Now, Kamara could have been a good guy to get off in tournaments because, look at 53%. But again, this is where it's tough. If he goes off on one of his games and you don't have him, you have no chance. But maybe in one of the lineups, he said, that's after the fact. I still like that I played him. So I really look at this. I mean, for me, these top 5, I think I hit on, and then I went the double tight end in tournament, but I didn't do it just to be cute. I will hear people go, oh, I played the double tight end to get some leverage. Yeah, but who did you play? Oh, I played, Schultz and Gronk. Gronk, but Gronk hasn't done anything. Darren Waller was coming off a bad game against the Patriots. We kind of knew that. Now, Waller fumbling cost on FanDuel $1 million for someone, by the way. I was following that. But, look at this. Waller, he gets 12 more yards. He gets the bonus. So, I mean, there was conviction for all my plays. I felt Kamara was just in PPR with Thomas out, and that I thought there were too many points. As you know, with my stack, I'm not going to go through that. You know why I played that. I'm telling you why I played some of these other games. Ronald Jones, I felt 2 touchdown upside. Brandon Cooks, big mistake. 16% owned. You know why? So many of the fantasy community, like the expert guys, were making a case for him, and I really played him off of that. Deep down, I did not want to play him because I don't like Brandon Cooks. I mean, I don't dislike him personally, but I don't think he's a great receiver. He's just a sprinter to me. Been traded way too many times to be a good receiver. And that's way too high owns in a tournament. And I'm kicking myself. I shouldn't have played him. So basically, to have won the tournament, really probably should have got off him, and that would have helped build elsewhere. You know, Buccaneers, I always try to pair running back. So let's look at the winning lineup for week 4, if we can. And you'll be able to see, you know, what this guy Kenny. He knew. Prescott, Nixon, Davis. This is similar to the FanDuel. Mike Evans. I mean, that's a pretty chalky lineup, right? I mean, why is Mike Evans 6.4% owned with Chris Godwin out? So that's a really good lineup. All right, good luck to everybody in week 5. And let's talk DFS. We'll do it again this week. We'll break down some of those single game slates and leave some comments below. Remember to like, subscribe. I got 62 subscribers. I'd love to get to 100 by the end of the month. All right, enjoy week 5.